The silent intruder. The Kalian Empire had every reason to celebrate. After 5 standard cycles of fortification and strategic deployment, Sector Theta 7 was finally declared secure. It was the crown jewel of their expansion, rich in rare minerals, and positioned perfectly for trade routes that spanned 3 galaxies. Grand Admiral Thaxus stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion, his 4 arms clasped behind his back as he surveyed the holographic display of the sector's defense grid. Another triumph for the Empire, announced Prime Minister Velka through the communication channel, her azure skin glowing with pride. With Theta 7 secured, our borders are impenetrable. Nothing can threaten us now. The celebration spread across the fleet. Warships adorned with ceremonial lights formed perfect formations, their crews participating in synchronized displays of military might. From the smallest frigate to the massive dreadnoughts, every vessel in the sector contributed to the grand spectacle. It was during this moment of supreme confidence that the first anomaly appeared. "Sir, we're detecting an unusual energy signature," reported Lieutenant Crix, his antenna twitching nervously. "Something is emerging from hyperspace at coordinates 224 to 8712. Thaxus turned his attention to the tactical display. The signature didn't match any known pattern in their extensive database. Classification: unknown, sir. The readings are primitive, almost like. Crix paused, double-checking his instruments. "Sir, it appears to be using outdated FTL technology, nothing we've seen in centuries." The Admiral's compound eyes narrowed. "Show me." A small vessel materialized on the screen, its design unlike anything in the Empire's records. It was angular and utilitarian, with none of the flowing lines or energy shields that characterize modern warships. The hull appeared to be made of simple metal alloys, and its propulsion system emitted radiation signatures that seemed ancient by galactic standards. "Analysis," Thaxus demanded. "The vessel is approximately 300 meters in length," Crix reported. "Minimal armor plating, rudimentary weapon systems, no visible shield generators. It's almost laughably primitive, sir." A ripple of amusement spread through the bridge crew. The idea that such a basic ship would dare enter their most secure sector seemed absurd. "Shall I dispatch a patrol to escort them out of our space?" asked Commander Nexus, already reaching for the communication panel. Thaxus considered for a moment. Protocol dictated that any unidentified vessel be treated as a potential threat, regardless of its apparent technological level. "Send the interceptor squadron. If they resist, disable them, and prepare for boarding." 3 sleek Kalian interceptors broke formation and accelerated toward the unknown ship. Their pilots exchanged confident messages, treating the mission as a simple training exercise. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted Kalian space. Broadcast Interceptor 1. Power down your engines and prepare to be escorted to the nearest processing station." The response came in a language their universal translators struggled to process. After a moment, the computer managed to render it into coherent speech. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Aurora. We come in peace, but we cannot comply with your request. Time is of the essence." The interceptor pilots laughed. Earth. They'd never heard of it. Probably some backwater colony that had lost contact with galactic civilization centuries ago. "This is your final warning," Interceptor 1 transmitted. "Comply or be fired upon." "I understand your position," came the calm reply. "But we're here to help. Please, allow us to explain." Thaxus had heard enough. "Fire warning shots. Show them the consequences of defying the Empire." The interceptors opened fire, their plasma cannons sending brilliant streaks of energy past the human ship. What happened next would be recorded in Kalian military archives as the beginning of the end of their era of dominance. The Aurora didn't dodge. It didn't even seem to react. Instead, the plasma bolts simply stopped. They hung in space for a fraction of a second before dissipating harmlessly. "What just happened?" Thaxus demanded, his voice betraying the first hint of uncertainty. "Unknown, sir," Crix responded, frantically checking his readings. Our weapons had no effect. It's as if they encountered some kind of field, but our sensors detect no shield emissions. The human ship continued its steady approach, ignoring the increasingly desperate attempts by the interceptors to block its path. When they fired directly at the vessel, the same phenomenon occurred. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, even electromagnetic pulses, all were neutralized before reaching their target. Admiral, Captain Chen's voice came through again. We don't want to fight you. We've come with a warning. There's something you need to know about this sector. Faxos felt a cold sensation spreading through his exoskeleton. No species in the known galaxy possessed technology that could so easily neutralize Kellian weaponry, and yet this primitive-looking vessel seemed immune to their attacks. Bring the fleet to battle stations, he ordered, his voice steady despite his growing unease. All ships, converge on the intruder. As the massive Kellian fleet moved to surround the lone human ship, Captain Chen transmitted once more. We discovered something in our home system, something ancient, something that led us here, to you. The security of this sector is an illusion, Admiral. You're not alone out here, and what's coming, you're not prepared for it. The Aurora came to a stop, surrounded by hundreds of Kellian warships. On its hull, previously hidden panels slid open, revealing arrays of devices that defied conventional understanding. They didn't look like weapons or shields, but something entirely different. Admiral Faxos, Chen continued, humanity may be new to the galactic stage, but we've learned things in our isolation. Things about the true nature of the universe. Things about why certain sectors remain uninhabited for millennia. You've built your fortress in a graveyard, and the owners are about to return. Faxos stared at the small ship on his display, his four hands clenching and unclenching. Everything about this situation defied logic. A technologically inferior species, speaking of ancient secrets and impending doom, while demonstrating capabilities that surpassed the Empire's greatest achievements. What do you want? He finally asked. To show you the truth, Chen replied, and to offer you a choice. Because when they arrive, and they will arrive, you'll need allies, even primitive ones like us. The Aurora's arrays began to glow with an ethereal light, and across the sector, dormant sensor stations that had been silent for eons suddenly came to life. The Kellian's own instruments began detecting energy signatures from the depths of space, signatures that matched patterns found in their oldest archaeological records, patterns that their ancestors had learned to fear. As realization dawned on Admiral Faxos, he understood that the celebration of Theta 7's security had been premature. The humans hadn't come as invaders or refugees. They had come as messengers, bearing news of a threat that would require the combined strength of all spacefaring species to overcome. The Empire had claimed this sector was secure. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Outside the viewports of every Kellian ship, the stars themselves seemed to flicker, as if something vast and ancient was stirring in the darkness between them. The human warship, no longer appearing primitive but rather purposefully designed, stood as the only barrier between the Empire and a truth they weren't prepared to face. The real battle for Sector Theta 7 was about to begin, and the Kellian Empire would need to reassess everything they thought they knew about strength, technology, and the nature of true power in the cosmos. Captain Chen's final transmission echoed through the bridge of the Dominion. Welcome to the real galaxy, Admiral. It's time humanity showed you what we learned in the dark. The ancient promise. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Aurora, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the holographic displays. Around her, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements betraying none of the tension that filled the air. They were surrounded by the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy, yet they remained calm. They had prepared for this moment for decades. Status report, Chen commanded, her voice steady. All systems nominal, Captain, replied Commander Yuri Volkov, her second in command. The Kellian fleet has ceased firing. They're maintaining position. Chen nodded, remembering the day that had led them to this moment. It had started on Mars, of all places, during a routine excavation of what they thought was a natural cave system. Instead, they found something that changed humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The chamber had been perfectly preserved, its walls covered in symbols that defied translation until they realized the writing was meant to be understood by any species that achieved spaceflight. The message was simple and terrifying. When the children play in the garden of the gods, the gardeners will return. Below the warning was a star chart, marking locations across the galaxy where similar chambers existed. Sector Theta 7 was circled in what could only be described as urgent emphasis. Dr. Patel, are the translation matrices ready? Chen asked, turning to their chief scientist. The elderly woman looked up from her console, her silver hair gleaming under the bridge lights. Yes, Captain. The Kalian should be able to understand our evidence now, though I doubt they'll want to believe it. Chen smiled grimly. They'll have to. Show them. The Aurora's communication array activated, projecting a three-dimensional image that appeared simultaneously on every Kalian ship. It showed the Martian chamber, the ancient warnings, and most importantly, the energy signatures they had detected approaching the sector. Admiral Faxos's voice crackled through the comm system. This is impossible. Our archaeologists have studied every ancient civilization in this region. There's no evidence of any advanced species predating the current galactic powers. That's because they didn't want to be found, Chen replied. Until now. Before she could continue, alarms blared across the Aurora's bridge. Multiple hyperspace ruptures were forming at the edge of the sector. They're early, Volkov muttered, his fingers flying across his console. The Kalian fleet reacted instantly, swinging their weapons toward the new threat. But what emerged from hyperspace made even their most battle-hardened warriors pause. Ships of impossible geometry materialized, their forms seeming to shift and flow like liquid mercury. They were massive, dwarfing even the largest Kalian dreadnoughts, and they radiated an energy that made conventional sensors scream in protest. Admiral Faxos, Chen broadcasted, those are what we came to warn you about. They're called the Harvesters in our ancient texts. They return to populated sectors every 10,000 years to collect. The lead harvester ship began to move, its fluid form extending tendrils of dark energy toward the nearest inhabited planet. Where they touched, matter simply ceased to exist. All ships engaged the enemy. Faxos commanded, his voice carrying the steel of countless battles. The Kalian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, graviton beams, weapons that could crack planets and shatter moons. The barrage hit the harvester ships and passed through them as if they weren't there. Admiral, Chen called out, conventional weapons won't work. We need to coordinate. The Aurora has something that might help. Your primitive ship. Faxos scoffed, even as he watched his fleet's attacks fail. What could you possibly? The Aurora moved forward, positioning itself between the harvesters and the Kalian fleet. The arrays on its hull began to pulse with increasing intensity, generating a field that made the very fabric of space ripple. This is what humanity learned in isolation, Chen explained as her ship's systems powered up. We found their weakness. The harvesters exist partially out of phase with our reality. That's why your weapons can't touch them. But we developed something different. The Aurora fired, not weapons in any conventional sense, but beams of precisely modulated quantum energy that seemed to anchor the harvester ships more firmly in normal space. Where the beams struck, the fluid forms solidified, becoming vulnerable. Now, Admiral, Chen shouted, while they're phased in. Hit them now. Faxos didn't hesitate. All ships, concentrate fire on the affected areas. The combined might of the Kalian fleet struck the solidified portions of the harvester ships. This time, the weapons found their mark. Explosions bloomed across the alien vessels, tearing chunks from their otherworldly hulls. But the harvesters adapted quickly. They began to shift their phase frequencies, trying to slip back into their invulnerable state. The Aurora adjusted its output, but it was clear they couldn't maintain the effect indefinitely. "Captain, power levels are dropping," Volkov reported. "We can't keep this up much longer." Chen gripped her command chair. "Dr. Patel, initiate Protocol Prometheus." The scientist's eyes widened. "Captain, that's still experimental. We don't know if. We don't have a choice. Do it." The Aurora's arrays reconfigured, drawing power from the ship's very core. Instead of targeted beams, it generated an expanding sphere of quantum resonance that enveloped the entire battle space. Every ship, Kalian, human, and harvester, was suddenly locked into the same phase of reality. The playing field was leveled, but at a terrible cost. The Aurora's systems were burning out, sacrificing themselves to give the fleet a fighting chance. "Admiral Thaxos," Chen transmitted, her voice strained, "we can't maintain this field for long. Whatever you're going to do it now." For the first time in his military career, Thaxos felt respect for a supposedly inferior species. The humans had come not as conquerors or refugees, but as equals bearing gifts of knowledge and sacrifice. "All ships," he commanded, "form up on the human vessel. Protect them at all costs. Tactical wing, prepare for close-quarters combat. These harvesters want to collect. Let's show them what the Kalian Empire is made of." The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy's fate changed. Kalian ships fought alongside the lone human vessel, their combined tactics proving effective against the now vulnerable harvesters. The ancient enemies, unused to resistance after millennia of unopposed harvesting, began to falter. As the Aurora's systems reached critical failure, Chen made one final transmission. "Admiral, we're sending you everything we learned about them. Weaknesses, patterns, technologies. Use it well. Humanity stands with you." The quantum field collapsed, but not before 3 harvester ships had been destroyed and the others severely damaged. The remaining invaders, perhaps recognizing that this cycle would not be as easy as the previous ones, began to retreat. In the aftermath, as damage reports flooded in, and the true cost of the battle became clear, Admiral Thaxos found himself standing on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the crippled Aurora. The human ship was barely functional, its revolutionary systems burned out from the strain of maintaining the quantum field. "Open a channel to Captain Chen," he ordered. The human captain appeared on screen, her uniform scorched and her face bearing fresh burns, but her eyes still sharp with determination. "Captain," Thaxos began, his 4 hands spread in a gesture of respect, "the Empire owes you a debt. You came to warn us, and you sacrificed your ship to save our worlds. Why?" Chen smiled, wincing slightly from her injuries. "Because that's what humans do, Admiral. We're new to the galaxy, yes. Our technology might seem primitive to you, but we learned something in our isolation. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't about having the biggest gun. It's about understanding the problem and being willing to sacrifice for others." She gestured to the tactical display showing the retreating harvesters. "They'll be back. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they will return. And when they do, the galaxy needs to stand united." Thaxos nodded slowly. "Then let us begin that unity today. The Kalian Empire formally requests an alliance with Earth. Together, we will prepare for their return." As rescue ships moved to assist the Aurora and its crew, a new chapter in galactic history began. The empire that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now recognized them as equals. And in the depths of space, the harvesters plotted their return, unaware that their ancient cycle of destruction had finally met its match in the unlikely partnership between the Kalian Empire and the resourceful humans from Earth. The Garden of the Gods had new guardians now, and they would not yield easily to the returning gardeners. The new dawn. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Theta 7, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Kalian Empire, once proud and isolated in its superiority, had opened its borders to humanity. Together, they worked feverishly to prepare for the harvester's inevitable return. Admiral Thaxos stood in the Joint Command Center aboard the newly constructed Station Unity 1, watching human and Kellian engineers working side by side. The humans' unconventional thinking, combined with Kellian technological expertise, had yielded remarkable results. Status report on Project Lighthouse, Thaxos asked, turning to face Captain Chen, who had recovered from her injuries and now served as humanity's military liaison. Chen manipulated the holographic display, bringing up schematics of massive quantum resonance generators being constructed throughout the sector. 70% complete. The network will create a permanent phase-lock field across the entire region. When the harvesters return, they won't be able to shift out of our reality. Impressive, Thaxos admitted. Your people work quickly. We have to, Chen replied grimly. The ancient warnings suggested the harvesters would return with greater force after an initial defeat. They don't like their harvest being interrupted. As if summoned by her words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Crix's voice echoed through the command center. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. It's massive, sir. They're coming in force. The tactical display lit up with contacts. Not dozens, but hundreds of harvester ships emerging from hyperspace. They had indeed returned, and with a fleet that dwarfed their previous incursion. So much for having more time, Chen muttered. Admiral, the Lighthouse network isn't ready. We need to implement the contingency plan, Thaxos finished. All ships, execute Formation Echo 7. Protect the generator sites at all costs. The combined human-Kellian fleet moved into action. In the months since their alliance, they had developed new tactics specifically designed to counter the harvesters. Human ships, refitted with Kellian power systems, took point positions. Their quantum arrays, though less powerful than the Aurora's original system, could still create localized phase-lock fields. The harvesters had learned too. They came in waves, some ships sacrificing themselves to overwhelm the phase-lock fields, while others slipped through in their invulnerable state. The battle quickly turned chaotic. We're losing generator sites in Sectors 5 and 7, reported Commander Volkov from the bridge of the Endeavor, humanity's newest warship. The network won't function without them. Chen's mind raced. They needed time, but the harvesters weren't giving them any. Then she remembered something from the ancient texts, a detail that had seemed insignificant at the time. Admiral, she called out, the Martian chamber mentioned something about the harvesters having a hierarchical command structure. If we can identify their command ship. Thaxos' compound eyes widened with understanding. We can disrupt their coordination. But how do we identify it among hundreds of identical vessels? They're not identical, came Dr. Patel's voice over the comm. The scientist had been analyzing the harvester fleet from her research vessel. There's one ship holding back, staying precisely at the center of their formation. Its energy signature is slightly different, more complex. That's our target, Chen declared. But we'll need to punch through their entire fleet to reach it. Thaxos turned to his tactical display, his four hands moving rapidly as he formulated a plan. We'll create a spearhead formation. Kellian dreadnoughts will form the tip, with human phase-lock ships providing cover. It's suicide, but if we can reach that command ship. Not suicide, Chen interrupted. Sacrifice. There's a difference, and we have one advantage they don't expect. She opened a secure channel to Earth. This is Captain Chen. Initiate Project Phoenix. From Earth's orbit, a ship unlike any other began to power up. Humanity had one last secret, a vessel built around a captured harvester core, salvaged from the wreckage of the first battle. It was experimental, dangerous, and their only hope. The Phoenix emerged from hyperspace directly above the battlefield, its hybrid systems allowing it to bypass the harvester blockade. The enemy fleet reacted with confusion. This was technology they recognized as their own, yet it was being used against them. All ships, follow the Phoenix. Thaxos commanded, break through their lines. The Phoenix dove toward the harvester command ship, its stolen technology allowing it to phase through defensive formations. The combined fleet followed in its wake, exploiting the chaos it created. As they neared the command ship, the Phoenix began to overload its captured core. Captain Martinez, commanding the vessel, sent his final transmission. "It's been an honor. For Earth. For the galaxy. Phoenix out." The explosion that followed was unlike anything seen before. A cascade of quantum energy that not only destroyed the Harvester command ship, but created a massive phase-lock field that trapped every enemy vessel in normal space. "Now," Chen shouted, "hit them with everything." The battle reached its climax. Without their command ship and unable to phase shift, the Harvesters fought desperately but futilely. The combined fleet pressed their advantage, systematically eliminating the ancient threat. Hours later, as the last Harvester ship exploded in a brilliant flash of exotic particles, silence fell over the battlefield. The cost had been high. Dozens of ships lost, including the Phoenix and its brave crew. But they had won. In the days that followed, as the lighthouse network was completed and the sector secured, a ceremony was held on Unity 1. Representatives from Earth and the Kalian Empire stood together, along with delegates from other species who had witnessed the battle and realized the importance of cooperation. Admiral Thaxos addressed the gathered assembly. "For millennia, we believed strength came from isolation, from technological superiority, from maintaining our boundaries. The humans taught us otherwise. They showed us that true strength comes from unity, from sacrifice, from the willingness to stand together against the darkness." Captain Chen stepped forward, accepting the newly created Medal of Galactic Unity. "Humanity came to the stars not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners. We brought with us our greatest strengths: adaptability, determination, and the courage to face the unknown. Today, we're no longer the new arrivals. We're members of a galactic community." The ceremony marked more than just a military alliance. It represented a fundamental shift in galactic civilization. Other species, inspired by the human-Kalian partnership, began reaching out, sharing technology and knowledge. The isolation that had defined interstellar relations for centuries began to crumble. A year later, as Captain Chen stood on the observation deck of Unity 1, she received a transmission from Earth. They had found another ancient chamber, this one containing plans for something called a gateway network, a system that would allow instantaneous travel across the galaxy. She smiled, knowing that humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning. They had arrived as unknowns, proved themselves as warriors, and now stood ready to help lead the galaxy into a new era of exploration and cooperation. The Harvesters were gone, their ancient cycle broken. But the greater lesson remained. The universe was vast and full of wonders and dangers yet unknown. And when the next threat emerged, as it inevitably would, the galaxy would face it together. As she watched Kalian and human ships patrolling side by side, Chen remembered the words from the Martian chamber. "When the children play in the garden of the gods, the gardeners will return." They had returned, and they had been defeated. Now it was time for the children to tend their own garden, to grow and flourish among the stars. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun. And somewhere in the depths of space, in chambers yet undiscovered, new secrets waited to be found. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and the adventure was only beginning. The Empire had claimed this sector was secure until a human warship arrived. Now, security meant something different, not the strength of walls and weapons, but the bonds of alliance and the courage to face the unknown together. As the twin suns of Thetis 7 set behind the peaceful planets they had fought to protect, Captain Sarah Chen knew that humanity had found its place among the stars. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, the exploration and protection of the infinite cosmos.